watched it. Thank God.
So I was one
Mutual.
of those kids. I did hair shows and pageants when I was
Yeah,
little.
you were a pageant kid. Oh, we're live.
We are.
We're
I
live.
asked you.
I know. I'm just
I asked you the question.
carry on. Carry on.
Sam continues to learn things about my personality that make everything make sense.
Yeah.
There's so much depth here and so many layers I never thought possible.
There's so much lore.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello! Welcome to the Yaoi Shelf Live. Grab a seat and relax. That was way too Alistair. I need to tone it down. Okay, so we are here joined by Sam again, illustrious visionary and patron saint of all Fujin kind. Thank you very much for joining us on this live stream.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Of course. Here to talk about our latest episode on purity culture, which has been very successful, and that brings me much, much joy and happiness. I've listened back to the episode several times now because, again, I'm the number one consumer of this podcast.
You are the target audience.
If you aren't making what you make for yourself, then why are you making it?
Right?
That's literally why we're here. Kurla, what is on your shirt?
It's Sasunaru. Can you tell?
I couldn't at first, and my brain just was in denial.
But I have worn it like 4 times on this show.
I know you have. That's why I asked.
I zoomed in quietly and I was like, oh, nice.
I
Like, there
feel
they are.
seen. Yes, they are also here.
I know they're there. I know where they are in your home. I know.
I also have 10 count.
Okay.
Oh, cute. I was like, I don't show me.
That anime, that isn't happening.
Also, Kin Porsche.
Ugh.
Nice.
I don't know what beleaguered husband noise that was. Just,
You love me.
I already said it once when the cameras weren't rolling. I can't say it again.
Exactly.
I have tsundere cred to maintain. But thank you all for being here. This is a great time to ask any questions that you have. Don't compliment her set dressing.
Why not?
They are cute pillows. Also, I got a side beverage before we started recording, and I got water. We are so glad to have
I'm
you.
glad you made it.
I wanted Kool-Aid. I do have red Kool-Aid in the fridge.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to say anything.
Made the southern way, where it's pretty much crunchy and you need a spoon.
That is how I
It's
eat
just
my,
a slushy
my
by that
milk.
point.
Yeah,
It's a sugar slushy.
but I decided not to because it would further stain my teeth. So we covered a lot in that purity culture episode. And it was truly great to have Sam on because, again, Curl and I have been nipping at the heels of this topic for a while, but we're not good at talking about it. And when I played back the episode, what really stuck with me was listening back to the part that I think, and I maintain, I think one of the big reasons why especially fans of our generation struggle with this so much is because like it is kind of like low-key triggering or high-key triggering for some of us, because it does mimic a lot of the bias and heteronormativity and just evangelical Christian bullshit that many of us grew up with, or at least very tangentially attached to.
Mhm.
Like
We naturally rebelled against it growing up.
Can't relate.
Yeah. Let's see. I stumbled upon y'all on Tumblr a few weeks ago, spent a few days binging all of your talks and loved them. I'm particularly looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us.
That is so fun.
That makes me so happy.
That makes me happy.
But yeah, and I was thinking about that, which actually brings us to something that I feel like we need to talk about with media literacy, which is the current discussions going on with Has Been Hotel and fetishizing abuse and a death of media literacy.
We're just jumping straight into it, aren't we?
Dun, dun, dun.
Of course we are. Sansa's here because he heard.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It brings up all the childhood trauma, and I'm so fascinated by that. So, Sam, I don't know, have you engaged with that part of the Has-Been fandom or any of the Has-Been Vizzypop fandom?
Basically, I've been watching it as like in the passenger seat, you know? Like, I know some people who either watch it or are actively discussing it, and I'm just like along on the ride, like, you know.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I wish I was there. So, for those of you not in the know, um, the big thing with Hasbin right now is that there is a character. His name is Angel Dust, and he is in a very, very abusive relationship with a literal moth named Valentino. Um, he's not a good person, but because
He's a
Hasbin,
moth. He's not a person.
he's also not real.
Yeah. True. I mean, I've only seen the first step yet, so I
This is nothing that's going to be a spoiler for you.
know it's fine.
So, we knew about Val in the pilot. So, trigger warning if you haven't watched Hasbin, the episode that has Angel and Val is very triggering. I didn't realize what I was feeling until I was sitting with my friend and I was like, oh shit, this is a trauma response. A lot of modern fans, though, have said because during that episode, Angel gets a fun little K-pop dance moment that they're fetishizing abuse.
Yeah, I
And
saw that.
because Angel uh, does a lot of things that previous survivors of sexual assault and sexual abuse do, which is hypersexualizing others, generally not understanding boundaries, and overly flirtatious and provocative.
Yeah.
So the read is that Hasbin is making sexual abuse and sexual assault fun.
Because if you survived sexual abuse, you can never be happy or enjoy anything ever again, and there's only one way to respond.
Correct.
And the environment that he's in, it's like, oh, it isn't a dingy basement with a dirty mattress, like in shackles. So it's being glorified,
Right. And there's so many layers to that conversation because I do feel like there is a way to have that conversation, that there are some weaknesses in Hasbin that I can see why people feel that way. But this isn't how to do it. So I think that media literacy conversation has to come back, where we're just seeing this continual just decline of understanding how to talk about media. And I wonder if it's almost fruitful to maybe collab on this again, but almost like a media literacy 101.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This maybe
So it's
let us know in comments and in chat. This might have to be like a future collab because I think one thing that I've noticed that when you are media literate, it's hard to explain to someone who isn't.
Yeah. It comes naturally, know, and it's like even just like going to school and like analyzing text.
Yeah.
The whole thing was like, oh, we read it through this lens, or we're seeing this from the perspective of a white man who was up in the 1940s and middle class, stuff like that. And so you pick it apart based on their biases and blah blah, the person who possibly made it, blah blah blah. And like these days, people just take it to be, if you don't portray this thing exactly like this, you're doing it wrong, and you're being actively hostile to survivors. They're doing this with Hasbin and Astarian and literally any character that has ever had like any kind of trauma, and just like, I can't believe people behave this way, and they take it so seriously when someone like this just my Ken doll to bash against the walls and go blah 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 blah. It's not that serious.
And I think like this comment brings it forward. It's just like they're telling one story.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then I've also seen because going hand in hand with this is also this idea that, like, on one hand, they are like, oh, but this is disrespecting victims and, real victims, and it's bad representation. But then they're also like, it's problematic because it's a cartoon. And, so they're reproducing the idea that if it's a cartoon, then it's meant for a younger audience. And therefore, it is inherently bad to begin with, that these characters are morally gray or morally wrong or sexually active. And they're in hell.
Right.
It's like trying to moralize South Park,
Yeah.
People did for many years.
And
I mean like on this extreme level of you consume the show that you criticize to such a degree, and you're like, but this is an ooh baby, and you're like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Like
this is an adult show for adults.
without
with
trying
damaged characters.
Without trying to spoil too much, I do actually understand a lot of why fans of current Has-Been are having issues with that writing. Has-Been, the direction that it's taking, again, without spoiling, is definitely trying to have its cake and eat it too. As someone who has been through this, I can understand how some of this stuff, when you don't have a brain cell, can look not the best. But again, you have to, it's so hard to explain to people that that don't have that media literacy, don't have that media training, to explain like it feels like the Chef Gordon Ramsay like idiot sandwich thing, where it's like I can't explain to you why you need to look at it this way. And I want to bring up this this comment, but sadly the people who need it won't listen. I think for us, the point of doing something like that is more to arm those of us who know what we're doing but can't express it, than to try to evangelize to non-believers.
Nice choice of words. Yeah.
It's all that pledging to the Christian flag I did when I was younger.
Yeah. That you did 10 minutes before the stream started.
And I was just talking about this on my literature show. It's so funny that my aunts, like to this day, are like, we were just so surprised that you turned out the way that you did. And I was like, really? You guys are surprised? You're shocked. All of you were shocked. Okay. Every single one of you, shocked and surprised. Okay.
Sounds like denial to me.
It is. But I would love to do, like, that might be like a future collab where it's like, because it's so, it's really, really hard to like take off the media literacy glasses and put them on someone else. And it's hard to, and and some of us, most of us have been doing this for so long that like, it's almost just like an unconscious thing that we do. Like, I couldn't explain to you always what the conscious processes are.
Well, it's like we've been doing it since we were kids. It's the same thing as playing pretend. You have war, you pretend to kill each other or be dead, but you're not going to like actually kill each other and die,
Yeah. What? Do you want to share with the class? You have a dark past?
Is this a Texas thing?
No, it's an Amanda House trauma thing. So, when I was younger, I think this is actually like right after my dad's wake. Me and my younger cousins were playing, and we ended up with my youngest cousin locked in a dog kennel, and we said we were playing World War II, and she was fiddly.
Why?
That's also the funny thing about kids is you're just like, what the hell are you doing?
50 times worse. And then and it was one of those things like, other formerly gifted children, all the adults are just excited that you know what World War II is, but then the other adults are horrified that you're doing a war crime. So it's like that 50-50 of like, we're very, very impressed that you're this young and you understand what you're talking about, but also, what the fuck, small child?
Yeah. Yeah.
Kids
you reminded me like that.
I was such a weird fucking kid. But yeah, I would love to do a media lit episode. I'd love to have Sam on that. And I also want to dovetail us that into a conversation that, it is still Black History Month. And, there's also a lot of like dual consciousness I noticed going on with some of how some people read things. And Sam, do you want to explain what dual consciousness is to the audience at home?
Wait, in what context?
Very base level, the Du Bois, like, double consciousness.
I don't know that specific one, but I probably understand the concept by that name.
So many, many years ago, a Black activist decided that he would come up with this idea that in every Black person, there is a double consciousness, there's a dual consciousness. There is the part of them that interacts with white society and white people, and there's a side of them that is African American. That's double consciousness. So, also, I think one thing that I have noticed overwhelmingly in a lot of these bad takes is an overwhelming whiteness, which just shows a very like base lack of empathy.
I'm shocked.
Right?
Shocked.
got me thinking about that double consciousness, because to exist in white patriarchal society, Black people and people of color had to learn and understand we are always performing. So we have to know these things. It is not an option for us not to be worldly, for us not to understand, for us not to think about things on multiple levels. Because if we don't, we're called ignorant, and we're told that we don't belong in the jobs that we're in, and people call us hostile.
And if someone calls a white person ignorant, then they just bulldoze
like, I'm
all
so
over
upset
you.
that you would call me ignorant. I'm so sad that you see me as racist instead of me reflecting on what I did that was so extremely racist.
Can someone do something?
As Fujoshi, people should learn how to be self-indulgent in their media enjoyment again. It feels,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, is we keep having to rationalize why we like things. And that, you know, to Corolla's point that she made, that it's all a part of activism. Everything is part of activism. Everything you watch and read and do is a part of activism. I am not reading fan fiction about Nicholas D. Wolfwood plowing the hell out of Vash the Stampede as part of any political action. That's not why I'm here.
Really? Because that is obviously how I consume my media. Like, I am always plugged in.
That's how they spread the socialism.
Yeah.
It's the Vashwood. There's hidden messages in there.
That is why we celebrate the Norwegian Constitution Day. That's why we have all this.
That's why the kids love the socialism.
Yeah, because of Washwood.
Like, I am not reading Plantwood because of any greater ideology outside of maybe my Catholic trauma.
Oh, that reminds me. It's like, and the thing too is that the biggest thing is that they don't know how to pick their battles.
Yes.
You're picking, they pick apart the smallest shit on the lowest level that doesn't matter. Like, instead of like anything remotely institutional, you know, when they're just like, it's the same thing when people would, like, a few people get represented in their media and they make their story, and then everybody comes in because they don't have enough representation, and they're like, why isn't this about specifically me? And then they start ripping that person apart like little cannibalistic crabs and animals, and then the person's just left like dying in the dirt, and they're just like, why don't we have more representation? You know, and it's like, look at the people who are driving the ship, please. Don't beat up the one passenger they let on the ship. You know?
Right. And we're seeing that again with Has-Been, where we have Alistair, who is canon Ace Arrow, but everyone wants to do his shipping. And the creator has said do his shipping, and also both of those things exist on the spectrum.
Right.
So, but you have all these like, this is bad. Actually, I saw a mutual. I'm not going to name any names, but I saw a mutual like, I wish people just wouldn't represent asexual people at all. And it's like, because of the Deer Man? Because of the Deer Man? That's what we're saying? It's the Deer Man, right?
Yeah, it's like they focus on the small things because they can have control over that, but specifically people. You're like, I will make you feel bad for liking this or supporting this or making this, but I'm not going to make any actual difference. You know, I'm not like emailing CEOs or like companies that are in charge of like all of the media that we get access to. No, I'm going to take it out on this person, usually who's queer and or like a female, you know?
Yes, exactly. And again, like, you know, again, this is a mutual of mine. I doubt that they're listening, but zero shame. If you do have genuine concerns about how asexuality and being aromantic is portrayed in Has-Been Hotel, I have a lot of issues with Has-Been Hotel, including its very existence. But
the duality of Amanda.
Shots fired.
I am being gracious to Corolla because she hasn't seen it all, but trust me, I have so much I want to say.
No, I am ready. I can't wait to get on this with you.
But people want to be really, really upset, and it's like, exactly, you're right. It's like you're being mad at someone who is in the same boat as us.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello. Also, Corolla, I unfortunately have to eat crow, where I take back something that I said before we started recording.
Oh?
So, remember how I wanted to give you a hard time about your Constitution Day?
Yes.
So, in Texas, grades 3 through 12 have to celebrate Freedom Week and Constitution Week, in which we focus on when the Texas Constitution was signed in September.
The Texas Constitution? Texas
We
has
have
a
our
Constitution?
Every state has their own constitution.
No.
Texas is the only state that is still enshrined in the Constitution that we can legally separate from the United States. We can still secede from the Union. Texas is the only
They threaten
state,
to do it like every year.
every fucking fiscal quarter. Every fucking fiscal quarter we threaten to separate from the Union. Texas is the only state that can fly its flag at the same height as the American flag. Everyone else has to fly below.
Is this a rule you have?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure all flags are flown at the same height here.
Like everything I've learned about Texas is against my will.
Listen, as a Texan, it is hell. It is my unique hell.
This is actually what it's like existing as a non-American in an extremely America-centric world. Everything I have
Well, the
learned
funniest thing is that it's the same for like other Americans based on what area you live in. Like, you know, like New Yorkers will talk about like rats and some shit, or they'll be like, there's tiny shrimp in the water, and you're like, what?
Yeah, but Texas,
it's like how we say that the way that you guys look at Florida is how the rest of the world looks at you.
We're the world's Florida.
Yes, and then Texas is Florida's Florida.
Yeah.
We are our own. We are the most Florida. We are absolutely crazy. So I have to unfortunately retract my sentence about wanting to give your Constitution Day a hard time because we have Freedom Week.
Okay, but to be fair, I just remembered, not that it has anything to do with constitutions or anything, but here's the thing that legit happened quite recently in Norway. I don't know if you saw it. It was all over TikTok, so you may have seen it. But there was a Tesla that, for some reason, ended up in the ocean. I'm not entirely sure.
For some
reason, a Tesla ended up in the sea, and there were people in it, obviously. But it's okay because someone came along.
Obviously,
no, because they were driving the Tesla, and then someone else, some other Norwegians, came along on a floating sauna, and they saved
a floating sauna. Incredible.
Warning thing I have heard in my entire life.
I will accept no further comments about how strange Texas is as a state.
Oh my god.
We are a very, very weird state, but at least we have queso. And anyone who wants to say that the best breakfast tacos come from Austin's a fucking liar.
Okay,
That's the real discourse.
Oh, you don't know about the taco wars.
No, I know.
Sam,
do not tell me about the taco wars.
Do not speak to me of the old magic of the taco wars.
What happened to media literacy?
It died with the taco wars. Media literacy got shot by the taco wars.
I'm putting the link in our group chat. So
I love that for us. But I think so. One, media literacy is amazing. Queso is also amazing. And yeah, like it's really, really fascinating to watch, especially with Has-Been, because Has-Been always just felt like such a fever dream. But we're not seeing it with Hell of a Boss, I guess, because Hell of a Boss is in theory not as popular, even though Vizzy is using her current coattails to say, go watch Hell of a Boss. And I'm very, very excited to see how the discourse changes when there are now more eyes on Hell of a Boss, because Hell of a Boss, in many ways, is the unhinged cousin of Has-Been.
Oh yeah, the funniest thing I saw that I was not expecting was when the show came out, and then there was actual Christian discourse, like heaven, hell, like going by like Bible names and people and characters and figures. I was like, this is the best stupid shit that I could have never predicted. Sits back with popcorn. They're like, they made so and so a white man. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure they did. What else is look at Jesus here, like. They're just like, yeah, Jesus had brown hair and blue eyes.
I do think
white.
I do think there is some Hell of a Boss discourse, because after my friend essentially made me binge the whole thing with him, my YouTube recommendations have been full of like video essays
Yes.
about Hell of a Boss, and they're all like, Hell of a Boss is problematic because this character is, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I thought it was cute. The only thing, like, okay, here is my major issue with Hell of a Boss, okay, and that is, I I love Blitz. I love him, okay, but see, when you use the Norwegian the O with the line through, that doesn't mean that you are omitting the O. That is not an O. That is an We are reading it as Blitze, and it is pissing me off. Please stop using Scandinavian letters for aesthetics. It is killing me. Christ,
this
in
is
Norwegian.
Texas chat. Yes.
Yeah, but this person got out.
Damn it! Come back.
You're like, I need to drag you down with me.
What is with our listeners? Such pain, Amanda.
Listen, it's so hard being a Texan because I love my state. I genuinely do. I love the people.
Yeah, that's the indoctrination.
I was like, don't start, Carl.
But there's nothing that I can recommend about this album. Like, if someone were to do the stars at night are big and bright, I will clap. Like, I love Buc-ee's and tacos and everything, but this is a hellscape with a horrible governor and worse senators and rampant racism.
Right? You're like, it's so fucking bad, but the food, you know, the saving grace.
Food.
And they're trying
Food is usually the saving grace.
They're trying to build a floating abortion clinic in the Gulf of Mexico because it's international waters.
May I suggest making it in the shape of a sauna, because apparently those are
home is yes. It's home, and I've lived here my entire life, and I'm a proud Texan. But god damn it, this place is hell. But yeah, so there was a point about Hell of a Boss being a little more morally gray, and yeah, like Hell of a Boss is definitely this much more unhinged show.
I'm not as if I can compare them, but yeah, but it is morally gray. I watched Hell of a Boss,
and it's a lot more unhinged. And I'm curious to see how that discourse works, because I feel like also Hell of a Boss had its insular, fan group really keeping it safe, because there's a lot more that's just off in Hell of a Boss than there is in Has Been, because Has Been got thoroughly sanitized.
Yeah, but I also feel like one thing that I definitely must have seen, or else I'm just projecting, because Blitz and Stolas knew each other as children.
Yes.
Therefore, this is a toxic, problematic ship. Yeah.
So late, but I feel like the media literacy is hard to bring in to online fandom. How majority of them were dominated by people from the U.S. I think yes and no, because again, like, I'm an American, I'm a Texan, but I had opportunities that I acknowledged.
Despite that,
yeah, and despite acknowledging that my opportunities were not equal to everyone, I escaped. Like, I understand. So I think, and that's something that we said in the episode, is that, like, it's easy to say, oh, well, they're kids, they're young, they don't know any better. We didn't have resources like this when we were. Do you know how powerful we'd be if we had modern YouTube when we were, 13, 14 years old?
If we had Fujoshi.info when we were
obviously, if Sam was producing more, but if we just had the internet resources, the ability to speak to people in real time, the ability to understand. So I think I'm never going to deny that American education is part of the problem. It is. But you're looking at... Yes.
I was going to say, I think, like, the biggest issue, I mean, we touched on a bit last time, is just, like, honestly, the biggest to me is the social media aspect, because you're getting people from a young age radicalized on things they don't understand. I can't do it. The machine broke.
back in time. Yeah, go back in time and make our lives easier, Sam.
You have to fix it. You have to become our real life fix it.
I'll go back to when I was in middle school and be like, this is my purpose. Oh, sick.
I would be, oh my God, if I had to go back in time.
But yeah, it's like, I think the biggest thing is radicalizing young people on social media because they're getting pulled into all these discussions they never would have otherwise been aware of. And like you see it all the time, more and more even. You see people basically argue, whatever the pro-ship stance is. And they're like, well, these horrible, terrible things are okay in fiction even just because, I understand it's bad in real life. And you're like, that's the whole fucking point! And it's like, but they've just been in such an echo chamber of like associating words with like the label of pro-ship that it's just become this throwaway term. And they're like basically doing the same thing, but they're like, I'm different. And so they make it everyone else's problem. Because they think no one else is as smart as they are. Especially not like anyone over 30 could possibly know how to not fetishize something and understand, fiction from reality, right from wrong, in real life versus fiction, know.
I saw a tweet the other day where someone was like, pro ship? Hell yeah, I'm a professional shipper, and this is the only thing I'll be answering to ever again. I'm a professional shipper. That is what
absolutely. So the young people want to be good, and so they feel like they have to. Yep, exactly.
Well, especially because they're policing each other, so then it naturally just goes outward to everyone else because they have to show everyone else how unproblematic they are. Meme on people.
Seriously, where do these expressions come from?
You've never had to refer to someone as Mimo?
No, I know that people do it, but that is not typically the words we use to refer to our grandparents. No.
It's like a southern like little thing like Mimo, peepaw,
Yeah, I've heard it.
Aggressively southern.
Especially like woodland, like I live in the Appalachians with Mima and Peepaw. And you're like, okay.
In a cottage with no electricity.
As it indicated, Westerners still have a taste for toxic yaoi ships. Did we ever lose it?
No.
No, but that is the thing, though, because, again, like we've talked about ad nauseum, and, which has been talked about, Dr. Thomas has mentioned it, Dr. Welker has talked about it, Sam has talked about it, Dr. Kirsten has talked about it. The West still has this idea of what yaoi is, and it's all toxic, it's all rapey, it's all bad anatomy and terrible stories. And
it's underneath a microscope right now too, which is why it's such a big deal. Like usually they'd be like, oh, the yaoi fangirls are over there, they're over there. We know they exist all the time because of like ship videos and fan art, but they're not being like examined by like gender criticals. This is like, it's transing the youth,
They also think that they're the problem. Like, I think that's the other big thing, because like that reminded me back like of older fandom where like the Fujin were just like in our own little weird corner, and like like normies made fun of us but we didn't care again, back to the Goya Omegaverse painting where, we were just like we need to commission someone to do that.
Yes.
But like we were just like off in our own little corner frolicking and enjoying ourselves with our weird yaoi hands and everything like that. And
I was not enjoying the yaoi hands.
They still scare me. Like to this day, they still like make me feel uncomfortable.
Can we just again?
I think it's just the perfect storm. It's the social media, the conservatism with like gender critical terms and those kinds of things, like reaching young people, like anti-king, anti-porn. This destroys your brain. This will make you a bad person. Etc. Combined, with social media and just like a lack of isolation, I want to say, because, if every day when I get home from school, I'd go on like the Gaia Online, like BL forum.
Yeah.
I was like in 8th grade, and I'd like read like the RPs that people did. And like, I would read about the books and stuff that like people were recommending. And I'd be like, oh, I got to try to find those, it was so simple. And like it was a simpler time, but it was because like, you wouldn't get some like alt-right dude bro just like flying in off the handle out of like nowhere and like, you know, saying a bunch of like wild shit, or even people like from like your own, you know, stratosphere, is just because you were in your own rooms, you know. It's like nobody else knew what you were doing and you didn't know what they were doing and you didn't care. Because you're like, well, it'd be a waste of time to just harass those people anyways because everything's modded and, you know.
And doxing wasn't invented yet.
Nope.
Yeah.
I remember being political talks by adults a decade back, thinking I was contributing to good things, only to get over time that we were just cannon fodder for them as a mob to control. I think one of the big things also is that I think a lot of this stuff gets conflated with, so like especially here in the West, there is a need for political action in a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think that's where we start getting into trouble with stuff, is there's this conflation of, yes, you do need to be politicized if you are in certain groups. Like there is, at this stage in America, an apolitical, biological female or a woman assigned at birth should not exist. There are active threats to female bodies going on across this nation. So an apolitical woman should not exist. An apolitical person of color should not exist. An apolitical queer person should not exist. An apolitical trans person should not exist. So I think there's this horrible conflation between needing to politicize aspects of what you are, but then taking that almost too far. So like there is something so radical in like my very existence, being out, being black, being queer, being assigned female at birth, wearing red lipstick on a fucking Sunday. There is so much about my existence that in and of itself is radical and political. My choice in questionable fictional men is not.
Yeah.
That is not my activism. That is not how I'm pushing a political agenda. And I think like there's this concern that we try.
And it's also not how you see the world either.
Yeah.
It's not. And there is this need, again, like there are things that are going to be inherently political. We talked about this with RuPaul's Drag Race, where an apolitical drag queen does not exist. That is not the roots of modern drag. That is not the roots of the modern drag movement. That is not the roots of what is going on in America right now.
But that is another part of the problem, right? Because not only is there a severe lack of media literacy, but people don't have the historical knowledge. Like they don't, they think like a lot of these younger like activists online, they think that they have reinvented the wheel, right? Because they don't know about the previous moral panics. They don't know that you're just rehashing the same propaganda that was used against queer people that is now being used against trans people. They are just rehashing you know, the anti-porn movement of the 80s. You know, it's the same thing, but they weren't there.
Like they can't see themselves like walking right into like turf zone where they just think, oh, you think this is gross? Well, I understand you, and it is gross. It could ruin your life, you know. And then it's like now you have to politicize media. It's like, yes, representation of media is important, because that was a big discussion like a decade ago when a lot of this was starting, but then people would just use it to bludgeon small creators who were already disenfranchised. Yeah. They're like, wow, you're being so fucking helpful right now. You know?
Right. And I think this is such a good point that it's like back in the day, we used fandom as an escape. Hello. Like I used fandom as a way to escape. And now we have bills like CASA, which is trying to neuter the internet as we know it. And it's very frustrating because without experimenting and learning all this stuff, oh god, I saw James Somerton.
Tyler's right.
Subversive and against respectability politics, but killing stalking is a toxic yaoi that is too complicated for the teenage girl's mind.
Again, first of all, we have to ask the question: did James Somerton make that video, or did he steal it? But
or
also,
did he fabricate it out of ChatGPT?
like,
Yes.
I watched a lot of his, or like I listened to a lot of his videos for a period of time. I've talked about this before, and I purposely, and I apologized for having endorsed that man. But I not that I gave him any money. Also, I have ad block, so no one gets my ad money. Nobody. But I purposely steered clear of all of his videos that had to do with Asian fandom specifically, because I know where it's going, because it is so typical, you know, the Western lens, and particularly the white man lens on Western media.
It's the homo nationalism.
Yeah, and like, I'm sorry, I don't need another white man explaining to me why killing stalking is toxic. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, and I think that this is also such a good point. It's become okay to make broad assumptions about people based on the media they consume. Back in the 2000s in school-based social justice programs, they were really wanted us trainers to not make assumptions. And that was true. Like, that was one thing that was always so important, was not making assumptions about people. And again, that need. So like, when I was in school in the early 2000s, back when dinosaurs were roaming, we
Back
had... Yeah, that
You're right, Tyler.
That creationist bubble. Oh, hold on. Some people emphasize. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But we had like a gay and lesbian student alliance, and at that time, I didn't think that I was gay, but I knew that I wasn't straight. And the most hostility that I received when I even courted bisexual was from those gay and lesbian students. And I didn't really find freedom and acceptance in being bisexual until I went online.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that acceptance, I don't think I would have felt comfortable eventually coming out. I feel like I always have to repent a little for backing Somerton. We forgive you, and he was a fraud, and that's the problem with frauds.
Everyone makes mistakes. And that's the thing, though, because... Like I said before, like, obviously there were some good points. It was just that they were all stolen. So they weren't really his.
It's really, really frustrating losing this like internet space to be able to talk about things in a constructive manner. Because, so like I mentioned this, you know, I'm gonna thread the needle. I've been talking a lot about Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss. I really want to make a video about it for my YouTube. I don't want that to fit into the dog pile of everyone else's shitty takes, because I hope I have valid takes. I have valid concerns. I have valid points. But I don't want anything that I have to say to get misconstrued or taken out of context for the sake of someone who's going to use this as a bludgeon against VisiPop or fans of the show. Because the last thing I'm going to do is tell someone that they're bad or stupid for liking this show. I want to love it. Me being disappointed is not an indictment on anyone. But I'm afraid that I would be lending any credence. I remember I had that when I was like really, really big into reviewing for Fangirl Nation. That like when I was reviewing like Star Wars. And I would have negative things to say about like Daisy Ridley and Kelly Marie Tran, their characters, not the actresses. Be like, yeah, they ruined it by letting the women talk. And it's like, no, that's not.
I think the only way you can possibly fix that is just with a disclaimer. You're like, hey, idiot.
But I mean, it's not like they're going to read it anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, I meant like at the beginning of the video.
Right.
You know, like this isn't typical thing, and you explain like, you know.
Maybe it's because they don't know us on the internet and they don't want to, so they assume that we consume.
I think another thing too, because I was also looking at the message you just read, is that like when we were growing up, like, you know, it was in the era of like punk rock was still new, you know, men just wearing like eyeliner and like painting their nails if they're in a goth band, you know, whatever was like, that was edgy. And there was emo style, and there like people like just furries were just trying to be considered normal enough, you know, and like gay people still didn't have like any rights, you know. So like well, when we were growing up, it was just like even the most benign people could be seen as like degenerate freaks or like possibly potentially dangerous people or perverts. And so we grew up knowing that they weren't. And so it feels like now when people like go out and there really aren't those conversations anymore. Like, you know, you'd have like the Maury show and there would be like somebody who likes like Lolita fashion, or there's somebody who's like a punk rocker and they like talk about it like it's a pathological like mental illness or something.
Yeah.
And like these days, it's like no, they're not gonna hurt anybody. You know, they just like the style. We don't judge people based on how they look or what they like. It's what they do. You know, and it's like they just don't have that now.
This is the worst sentence I've ever heard, which is people use James Somerton's ideas to back up anti-Fujo argument. I hate that.
That is like if there is one single gay man saying something that can be used against Fujoshi, they're gonna run with it. Like that is just
the Summer Hikaru died takes were everything about James Somerton was bad. End of sentence. But I think also
end of discussion.
Everything about James Somerton is bad. His favorite food is bad. The car he drives is bad. His pets look dumb. Everything is bad.
Do you have a lot of inside info that the rest of us don't have, or what?
No, not this time. Not this time. But I think, you know, what it kind of also reminded me of is, and I'm the first to advocate that the old internet was not always great. For mental health and safety of us as minors, because we shouldn't have been there. But because it was kind of unfiltered, we didn't really have a choice but to put up or shut up. Like no one was going to listen to you like again, I DJ'd and modded for Gendo. If someone shared hardcore like lolicon in one of the forums, I wasn't going to raise my hand like, excuse me, as a minor, I don't like seeing the sexualized image. I'd be hit with a broom. Yeah. I'd be hit with several brooms.
But, like, no one would have said that back then. Like,
also, that's not a sentence anyone would have said. Our brains
outside of rad femmes.
Minor. Yeah, exactly. I don't...
Because that's, like, where a lot of the discussion started. You know?
But there's so much... It's so easy to stay in these little bubbles. And, you know, one thing I love about having a podcast especially is how often this show breaches containment. How often this show is shared outside of, you know, our intended audience, our friends, our, you know, immediate mutuals. And listening to people who like, I've never thought of this before, or I was just thinking about this, or I was just considering this. But it's so easy to stay in your little circle of like just your rad femmes, of just your gender criticals, of just this and just that, that it's hard to imagine the world in a complex manner. And that makes me very, very sad because I think of things like TikTok. TikTok knows me better than like my family does. The TikTok algorithm is scary with how well it knows me. And because of that, I don't see a lot of information outside of what TikTok thinks I want to see. So there's times where I'll talk to a friend who's also on TikTok and our experiences are so radically different.
Yeah.
Because all I'm seeing is what I want to see, which right now is just bunnies and Gustarian.
But is that your sandwich? Not anymore.
Yeah, but I mean it's like the national broadcaster here did this experiment where they were like they had a test group, they divided them into two groups and they registered to TikTok as one group was registered as teenage girls of a certain age and the other was registered as teenage boys of a certain age, and the boys immediately got like all of this incel, alt-right, conspiratory, like all of those, like Andrew Tate, all of that, and the girls would get like also a lot of like false info type of more, you know, the influencers like quick form content that is also like, and then they did an article about how kids, you know, they get their news from TikTok and they are aware a lot of the time that is not necessarily true, but they don't have the time to go and actually check it against the real source.
They learn about those things outside of themselves through that filter. So it's like the only time rad femmes are talking about or interacting with trans issues is through how they already have been programmed to see those issues, you know. And the same thing with like fiction or like yaoi, whatever, you know. And in that case, like incels, women's topics and all that stuff, and they're just like, yeah, you hate it when women do this or that, and you're like, excuse me, you know. And there's like that's the fun misinformation, disinformation pipeline.
I think that there is a place for TikTok to be an authentic news source in the way that any social media platform is, because again, like, you know, American who was on Twitter told me so many things as it was happening, as it was going on. I remember, I think it was the Sandy Hook shooting. Found out about that because I was at work.
And when July 22nd happened in Norway, you know, in 2011 with the terrorists that shot 69 kids.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was, you know, we saw that happen in real time on Twitter because the kids who were there at the island were tweeting, do not call us because we are hiding. And, you know, and that was before the news picked it up. And especially being, you know, in Norway, like we will get news, international news will appear in the media, you know, like 3 days after it's over everywhere else. So you do rely on social media. But I think that as, you know, the older generation of, you know, netizens, we have also learned to be critical of what we consume and like double check the sources. And it's not like I don't fuck up sometimes and like share a post and then it's like, oh, that turned out to be fake. Yeah, you know, it still happens, but we have that critical sense because we've been taught use it.
Also, hello Canada. Please send maple syrup and effective governing practices. Thank you. But you can keep the monarchy. You don't want that. I don't think the monarchy would help us.
I don't think Charles
been trying to avoid that for so long. Almost slipped.
I am knee deep in Royals drama right now. I am knee deep wading in it, and I have so much that I want to say, but it all feels very disrespectful.
You know, but this is speaking as a Norwegian, I am a royalist because our royal family is, you know, not that insane.
Yeah, your royal family seems pretty chill.
I mean, except for that one princess, but we don't talk about her because she technically isn't royalty anymore, so she can do whatever she wants.
Valid, fair. But there's, you know, and I think so. One thing also that I see that there's a lack of with the youth is checking bias.
Yeah,
and I know. So like, I'm
that
an old
is
man.
not your K-pop bias, people. Not the same thing.
It's not. I'm an old man. Every once in a while, I will see something on the internet that I turn into an old boomer, and I'm just like, oh, these kids.
Yeah.
Oh, gross. And then I move on.
Or not even gross. Not even gross. Just like something that I fundamentally don't understand.
Yeah, like when they make a new word.
Therian.
What?
So Therian is a non-binary transgender archetype that instead of you being another gender, you are another creature.
Oh.
So I saw that and my brain wanted to rush to being old and judgmental. And then I paused with myself for a second and I was like, it's not my place to say. How old? Sorry, I'm finding people that call themselves. Okay, yeah, I'm not really that old.
We're going by like fandom old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like, I know Star Trek and stuff, but like online fandom stuff.
I genuinely appreciate your time in fandom. I massively look up to all of my fandom elders. Many of them are the same age, if not older than you are.
Absolutely.
Were old when I was a kid. So they're just enwizened now. Now they're just
yo wizards.
Well, no, like we have a Discord for Gendo, so a lot of old Gendo folks moved over to Discord, And we met. Oh my god, yeah, I don't even think my parents were married. My parents were
I mean,
married by then. Oh
we're
god.
yeah, no, we're not quite there.
But,
But it's like I was in a meeting last week, I think it
oh,
was,
your
and we
child
were,
meetings.
yeah, with my children, with my child colleagues.
Yes.
Who are like teenagers, and we were split into two groups, so we were planning these events, and one of the events is like a queer book talk thing we're gonna
Hmm.
do, and they're like trying to find out who should be on the panel, and I
Hmm.
overhear this group of 15 to 19 year olds talking about how, oh, and we should get someone like an old queer person, and I mean like old, not like 30, and I turned around and they were like,
And
not
all of
you.
your joints creaked. Like,
But like they meant like a pensionary,
yes.
like
Yeah.
a
A
tired
pensioner?
person. Yeah,
Like what
pensionary.
you usually think of when you hear elder.
Yeah, like an
And you're like, this is somebody
elderly
that's
person.
been around the block so many times they know everything.
Thank you for your service, even though I
Honestly,
wasn't
it
there.
can be. I feel so young and real. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I am a millennial. I'm about as millennial as it gets, and I
Yeah, same.
simultaneously feel like such a child, but
Yeah.
so fucking old all at once.
And
Yeah.
I'm like that weird. I think we're probably, we feel the same way about this because we're like we're 30 somethings,
Yes.
and we are huge nerds. So, but we're adults, but we're also
Mhm.
not traditional adults because we're not
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
married with kids. And,
exactly.
like, so I still have to like kind of sit at the kids' table at like
Yes.
family functions,
Yes.
but and then the adults don't know how to speak to me because like they can talk to my sister, like my kid sister is 7 years younger than me, but she's done everything right, so she's
Mhm.
like, she got a proper education, she has a proper job, she lives with a boyfriend, and they're all like
Mhm.
asking her about like her job and where are you going on vacation, and I just like weird fictional stuff, so no one ever asks me anything.
You're like, do you want to ask me about my gay books, please? It's like, what do I talk about?
And
No,
they'll
like
be like, have you written anything lately? And I'm like, yeah, I wrote that book that came out. And then they're
Mhm.
like, oh, okay. And then they'll like change the subject because they don't know how to talk to me.
Right.
same. Like I went to a family reunion last year, and most of my family on that side of the family, like I stopped growing after my mom died when I was 20.
I'm
So-
sorry. I read Tyler's comment.
Oh man.
We've been
No.
through this. I am
Through the-
exactly on the average, so I think I'm safe.
like, oh my god, I met someone at a con who was 19, and when he was teasing about being old, and I was like, oh my god, I would get upset.
I have there's this Facebook memory. That's how old I am. I still use Facebook.
I did also still use Facebook.
But
Yeah, me too.
there's this one Facebook memory that pops up, once a year, and it is me. It is me looking at some fandom Tumblr, and I think that the status is like, "Oh, I feel so old." And then I saw someone on Tumblr saying that they're 27, and I'm like, "Well, at least I'm not that old." And now I wish I was that young. Like
That's how it
oh, I
goes,
could
right?
be 27 again. Like
Well, yeah. For me, it's just like, yeah, just give me the body back, and then just keep the mental capacity. I like that.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't believe in back pain, and then I turned 30.
I have always had back pain because I have no torso and giant tits.
Yeah, fair.
So I've always experienced back pain.
I've always had bad knees though, so there's that.
I love that this is just now like the old man chat.
You know,
The old man hour. But
But
the
yeah,
minor coded old man hour.
Yeah,
The minor coded Aji-san hour.
But I just saw something, and hold on. Blue Sky the other day was chatting about old anime, and I was like the late 80s, 90s. I was so close. Yeah,
I
every
grew
once in
up
a
with a
while-
lot of that stuff too,
Like,
just by
again,
proxy.
remember, I think it was like last year or maybe 2 years ago when there was like this tweet and they were like, which generation, like anime generation you are. And then like the oldest one, the one that was labeled as ancient, was Susumiya Haruhi. That's 2007. So
God.
and I'm over
Yeah,
here
I guess
like,
you die.
okay, I guess. But especially, I mean, like it wasn't. Not to bring that up again, but it wasn't the way it is now. With simulcasts and everything. Like
No, it was
we didn't get everything. Like we were.
It took stuff like it could take stuff like 2 to 4 years to get here.
Yeah.
For like, books or shows.
We were watching things from the 80s and 90s.
Right.
I think we feel so old online too, just because fandom has become so taxing.
Yeah.
Like fandom before this stuff was basically just your unhinged zone. Like, woo, anything goes, whatever, because we like understood it as like an unhinged zone, not like trying to be professional or serious necessarily. But now people take it so seriously that you turn into Rose from the Titanic, and you're like, it's been 84 years when it's been like 3.
And also, so fast paced. They are, continuously moving on to the next thing.
There's more content. There's more media. It's coming out faster and sooner.
I would love to pick your brain about that, actually, to hear more about like your con experiences from
because I was a literal child in 1999.
We didn't have any cons yet here in 1999.
I think we were just starting.
I don't even know what a con was.
No,
I
had a pen pal.
Ooh.
When I was 13, I had a pen pal in Spain, and she was like 20, which obviously today would have been a disaster. We connected through the GeoCities Team Rocket fandom, and we would write each other letters, and she would tell me about how they had conventions in Spain. And I was like, this sounds like the most amazing thing ever.
Right.
And that's how I learned about it.
So I know I've said this before, but every once in a while, I forget how nerdy you are, Carola. And then you'll remind me.
We are literally doing a podcast about fictional gay men. How are you?
Just every once in a while, it sneaks up and it surprises me. But I think one thing also, one big thing that's been in the news recently is like AI deep fakes. My favorite being there's one creator who has an entire Gothic Lolita like verse, but it's Ben Shapiro, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and a Barack Obama talking about Lolita fashion. And it's
like, Obama, free him.
And it is one of my favorite things. It is one of my favorite things on the internet of just Ben Shapiro and Donald Trump and Joe Biden talking about Lolita fashion. But that deep fakes are going to continue to further the issues that we have with media literacy and comprehension and critical thinking. And while I am, of course, concerned about AI continuing to influence our media and influence how people view information, and I am concerned about deepfakes, I think on a bigger level, I'm still just concerned about like basic media comprehension.
Yeah.
Like I'm too worried about just like a basic lack of being able to string an argument together.
I didn't see that.
Yes, I did. That I'm too worried
about the Maximum the Hormone one.
Oh my god! Again, once more feeling ancient and decrepit. But yeah, I feel like I'm so much more concerned about other things that are happening in the world of media to be concerned. Like there's like a list, there's like a hierarchical list, and AI's on it. But I feel like it's probably not high up on it enough for everything else that's going on in the world right now.
I feel like I don't have the mental capacity. Like there's no more room. Like I am too busy being preoccupied with, the death of media literacy and comprehension to actually to start what like just to start looking into other things. Like, yeah, I know AI is a problem, but I don't have the mental capacity for that right now.
Since it personally threatens like my line of work, it's always been a high on the list, but in terms of like, I don't get into debates about it necessarily, just because, you know, you already know what the other side think, and they have no actual experience or comprehension of art or creation whatsoever. So you're just like, why bother? You know, I'll just support posts that like say the things I agree with at this point.
I can barely follow you, youngins. Oh my god. Oh,
I
I was
I'm the
thinking
most
that
anti-modern person.
I wish I could go back. There are some days that I wish I could just go back to my flip phone,
Oh, I
where
Mhm.
love my flip phone.
my ringtone was 1 2 3 4 by Feist, and I could.
You know, I still have the same ringtone on my iPhone that I had on my flip phone. I've had it on 3 flip phones. It is an old Dwango commercial that G sings. So it's like and then my sister heard my phone ring the other day, like yeah, I think it was during Christmas or something, and she was like, "You still have that ringtone?" I was like, "Yeah, he is my god. I need him."
I think for the longest time, my other ringtone was a Glaring Dream, a Light in the Dark
Oh,
remix,
I was
because I'm old and I like
listen.
gravitate.
I was hosting Valentoru on Friday, right?
I
In
saw.
my Shuichi stage costume. Finally, I even got to take some photos on the stage. I'm so happy. And
My God.
I was playing gravitation music all night. No one could escape me. I was like, this is
Of course, no
this
one
is
could
for
escape
me. I
me.
did that for me. I don't
You're like, I've locked the doors.
I
Yeah,
have
and
locked the doors.
unfortunately, we had 35 people enter the cosplay competition because I was like, if nobody enters, I'm just gonna do my gravitation panel right here. Like I have a microphone. I'm ready.
Corolla is just, I'm pretty sure if there was like a flock of pigeons and Corolla had a microphone, she would do the gravitation panel to those birds.
I'm like, hello? That sounds like something Shuichi would do though. Honestly, I had a good
I
time.
love that. Like, that sounds like something, like if there was like a flock of pigeons and you had access to a microphone and a laptop with your slides, you would just,
I
I'm
don't
sure,
even know I can explain. It's
pigeons
fine.
would greatly appreciate it. But
Huh?
this is, what?
No, I just got a weird text.
Would you like to share with the rest of the class?
Oh, it's just someone I barely talked to asking me what happened to the zombie walk. I'm like, what zombie walk?
I retract
Sit
all of
down
the,
late night panels.
I miss those so much. I miss conventions. I'm probably gonna try to go back to one this year because I miss paneling with real people.
Yeah.
Not
I'm
not to
constantly
yes.
I'm constantly pulled between like, I'm gonna go live in a hobbit hole and like unplug my internet. And I'm gonna like delete all my social media. And then
Yes.
like the other part, and like not be perceived to live in the mountains. And the other part of me is like, I want to help people and talk to people every day. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like it's that feeling like every day back and forth.
But like
It's like I want to go back to being
I want
13.
I want to be a hermit, but I want to have access like I want to have access to the internet so like I can access, my artists and my stupid little shows and all of the things.
Yeah.
I just
You
don't
just don't
want
want the psychic damage.
Yeah, I just don't want to interact with the people. I don't want to see the stupidity. I want to be on the
Right.
internet without the other people. I want to be alone on the internet.
I want what the old internet was. Put it back. It's like put it back.
Like I think that's it. And I think, to bring it back to the point,
You just don't want the fighting.
it's I always think about, why our fandom elders, were quote unquote better at this than we are. Because, we are now the fandom elders.
Mm-hmm.
We are now those fandom elders. And I think I cannot dismiss that triggered argument. And I know I've lampooned that word 1,000,005 times, but like there is a lot of that rhetoric that is damaging and hurts and is hard to process. And, again, especially for people like me, who've escaped a lot of this rhetoric, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's hard to go back and think about it too hard. Seeing those racist arguments, seeing those sexist arguments, it's hard to even like wrap my head around it because it's just wrong. And you know it's wrong. And you've been fighting for so many years that it's wrong that you can't even formulate. Yes.
I was going to say, I think in some cases too, and I've thought about this before, is that like we know how bad it was. So like when you see people say like, people calling Miguel Papi is like Spanish appropriation and like fetishization of a brown man, and you're like, they just think he's hot. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know, it just makes you turn into like a moldy pear and like die on the street because you're like, why do you even care this much to make like a whole call out post about people calling Miguel Papi and being like saying it's racist and fetishizing to like find like him sexy at all, you know, and go, hey Papi, and you're like, you're all racist. You're like, you don't know what racism is in this case.
It doesn't matter because Miguel is a child, so
it's such a fucking mess.
Old man.
People talking about like, fetishizing this character or, you know, this or that, and you're just like, we didn't even have gay people like on TV. Like, what?
And I think that's the other half of it. There's the half of it that is like, this is genuinely triggering, and I don't know how to process this. And I refuse to even be in the same room as it because I've dealt with this for too long. And then the other half, to keep room for Jesus also traumatized.
You know, I was thinking about that the other day, and I don't know why. I think we were at my girlfriend's house, and we were like watching some movie or something, and for some reason, the phrase "leave some space for Jesus" came into my brain, and I was like, whenever I hear that, I just imagine that it's like a threesome with Jesus in the middle.
Leave room for Jesus.
Leave room for Jesus.
And my Catholic,
queer as folk.
Yeah, and the person that went to Catholic school imagines having a nun shove a ruler between you and the guy you're dancing with at the high school dance.
Is not where I thought you were going to say that ruler went. I'm sorry.
No, just right.
That's why we're all here.
Yeah, that's why we're all here.
We're all in the trash brain together.
Oh my god!
Ruler jabbed into your chest, like you are next to be crucified with that ruler.
Back 8 paces.
We always have the most spindly nuns. Just the
spindly nuns. Just the like spider ladies.
They really were, and like some of them were nice, except for that crotchety old bitch, Sister Dorothy. Fuck you, Sister Dorothy.
They're like, fuck you, Sister Dorothy.
Oh my god.
There was queer as folk, but it was on like it was on like the gay channel, like Capital the gay channel. That was Bravo. And if you didn't have cable, then you were just like shit out of luck.
We didn't
at least as far as I remember.
There. Like I saw Queer as Folk. I think the whole show was finished by the time I got hold of it. I had to download it, and I watched it in like 2007 was the first time I saw it, and that was like all 5 seasons back to back.
I think that's around when I saw it first too.
I do love it though. I do a lot of it.
You love that one character.
Who? There are actually 2 characters.
One is Shane.
No, that is the L word.
Oh, that is the L word. I'm sorry.
Listen, Shane is the only character worth anything on the L word except Helena.
All I remember on Queer as Folk, well, there's some things I remember, but all I remember about the 2 women was that I saw the episode about like biphobia, and I was like, this doesn't sit right with me for some reason, even though I'm only like 16, you know.
Well, but I mean, what is peak for me though is that I started watching Queer as Folk. And, literally the first thing that happens is that baby Justin goes into the club, meets Brian, and that starts their whole situationship. And Justin is like 16, 17, and Brian is turning 30. And the fact that I have never had a problem with this, I was rooting for them the whole time. And when they canceled that wedding in season 5, I am still upset. I'm still very upset.
And I think that also, I highlighted this comment because I think college was the first time I met queer people when I was younger. Yeah. Exactly. Like, I feel like, to tie us back a little bit to that media literacy and purity culture comment, that we're getting back to that idea of there is an idealized version of what it means to be certain things.
Absolutely.
And because of that, it leaves out a lot of room for people who usually don't fit in neatly to those boxes. So like I mentioned the gay and lesbian alliance that I had when I was in school. I also was going through, I wasn't just going through sexuality, I was going through gender stuff. And I remember like trying to express, it's like, you know, I feel male sometimes, but I don't feel wrong in my body. But there's like this undeniable part of me that feels very masculine, that feels very much like a guy. And just getting told over and over again by cis gay men or cis les women, you're trans, you're trans, you're trans, you're trans, you're trans, you're trans. And then I did my research, I started looking into it, and I'm like, that doesn't feel right for me. It's like, oh, well, then you're, you know, the modern word for it is like a trender, like a poser. Like you don't know
it's like,
what you're doing. And it's
you have to pick a side. Basically, it was always you have to pick a side and you have to go all the way to the side.
Yes.
And if you aren't that, then you just want to be special, and you're an asshole for taking a space minute for real queer people.
Right. Exactly. Like wearing a dress shirt, trench coat. Exactly. Like there were so many instances where like because I didn't fit neatly in any of those exact binary groups, I felt very ostracized. And it wasn't until I met these like really, really open communities online through role playing, through doing fan dubs, to doing fan translations, to cosplaying, that really like the idea of all of these non-binary existences came to mind. Like because of Yuki Eri being an out bisexual, I felt comfortable being bisexual. Like
our Lord and Savior Yuki Eri.
He's not good bisexual representation, but he is there.
Leave him alone. He
exists. That's good enough.
I love it.
It was that or John Constantine. Neither are good bisexual representation.
No, but it's like, you know, when I, you know, at the time I was like 15, between 14 and 16.
15.
Realizing, somewhere on that spectrum, realizing that I was not straight. At the time, you know, I labeled myself as a bisexual. Now, of course, you know, I use pansexual. But the only other queer people I knew were other girls who claimed to be bisexual for the attention. And like, I'm not saying that to, you know, to minimize, you know, the existence of bisexual girls, but everyone I knew at the time were like, oh, I'm also bisexual. And then it would be like, so they could make out with a girl to get the boys going, you know? And then I remember being pulled into like a computer room in school by a couple of my friends who'd heard the rumor. And they were like, are you bisexual? Is it true? I'm like, yeah. And they didn't believe me. They thought I just wanted attention because I had a boyfriend. God. And that was
they're like, oh, you want the attention of guys.
Yeah, I had a boyfriend. I didn't want anyone else's attention. I just happened to walk into the video store one day, and there she was. I was like, damn, I don't think I'm straight.
Well, no, I had that actually. I had a friend say that not too long ago where I mentioned like, oh yeah, me being bisexual. And it's like, but mostly straight, right?
Yeah.
Like I still get that. It's like, but mostly straight. It's like, no, human men repulse me at this stage. The only man I want is fictional.
Like, I was one of those people who was just like socially clueless. So I'd be like, oh, other people can have that, but I can't. You know, I was like that Patrick Wallet thing, where they're just like, you know, bisexual people exist since eighth grade, right? You're like, yep, you know, and you know the blah 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 blah. And you're like, yep. So does that make you bisexual? I'm like, no,
not me.
Not me. No, not me though. You know,
like, other people can do that.
And like, there was no concept of trans mask. Like, the word supposedly has existed at least since like 2000, possibly before that. I can't remember the exact decade, but you know, there wasn't anything online. You know, it was either pick one side or your attention-seeking bitch. You know, who's ruining it for everyone else. You know, so I was just like, for so many years, I was like, I'm an enthusiastic ally. You know. It's
Oh my
like,
god. Yeah.
Yeah, me over here just like, I am totally cisgender and straight, sees one woman. Like, I am questioning my entire existence.
But it's like, but we didn't
or
know. That's
like,
the thing, though, because we didn't have the
yeah,
language. We didn't have the awareness.
Right. And I think that's what's so frustrating about like seeing these kids fall for these traps right now is that like again, the power we would have had
Hmm.
if we had the modern internet back then. I mean, my
mhm.
fan fiction would have been so much better for so many years if I had
But
been able to Google what sex looked like.
everything. No, but like, I mean, but that's the thing, though, and I think that's one of the things that makes me so angry as well, is that now they have the power, and then they're using it all wrong. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? You have
And
all of this information at your fingertips, and you can do so much good, and then you're just like doxing
Well,
each other.
that's the thing, is that they've been like conditioned to think that they are doing so much good by being a jackass online about ships, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
yeah.
That's what they think they're doing. Like they're like, I'm helping, and you're like, no, you're not. As you're like in tears, like crying outside with like a bottle of like whiskey. And you're like, you're not helping anyone.
So I grew up in Texas where the LGBT community center was called church.
That doesn't add up.
Oh, conversion therapy.
Yeah,
Oh,
It took me
yeah.
it took me
No,
a second to be like, because I knew where you were going with it, but I was trying to think of like what specific. Yeah, conversion therapy.
and
Yeah.
again, like I'm over here
Yeah.
all secular, don't understand anything. But yeah,
that was
no,
called church.
That's where they go to fix ya.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like obviously, again, I'm in Norway, like, and we're a pretty much, a pretty progressive country in many ways,
Mhm.
but we are really bad at like community things. So like our schools, we don't have. I've talked about this before, but we don't have those big, like, we don't have the school spirit. We don't have the after school clubs, or like the student unions is something that you get when you go into university. So there's nothing when you're
Mhm.
like in
There's no extracurricular
yeah, there's
activities.
nothing unless you're in sports, and sports are,
Yeah.
majorly homophobic. So we didn't have any of that, and like we do have like a national reaching organization that has like local chapters, but when I grew up, they were so small, and I don't think they had a youth group, and if they did, we didn't know about it. So it's so much better now. Like there are so many more alternatives for young queer people in my city now, and I love to see that. But we didn't know that those existed. Like I would be watching like like some American high school drama, and they would have like a GSA, and I was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I mean, I told you about my GSA. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
But I think so. Let's wrap up on the big thing, which is what can we as fandom elders do to make things
Cry.
better? I think
Oh, okay.
cry, go have a glass of wine, write a problematic fanfic out of spite,
Oh yeah.
which is what I do. I think one, it's being willing to tolerate some discomfort in this space, which is really, really hard. And I acknowledge that it's hard. And I've had to have my days where I don't acknowledge and I don't engage because it's emotionally and physically taxing on me. But I think we're going to have to expose ourselves to a little bit of that discomfort in measure, because the only way that I see this getting better is attrition. Yes, exactly. Be petty. Create more of what they complain about. The only thing I see out of this is attrition. And what I do see, and Sam mentioned this, that these kids will grow up.
Hopefully.
And they will start to see the world in a more complex way, especially because now they do have all the tools in the world. I can't change a gender critical, like, I'm not going to change a 40-year-old TERF.
Yeah.
That's not who I'm aiming to change or to evangelize to or to speak to. I don't even want to be in the room with a 40-year-old TERF.
Same.
But the 17-year-old who retweeted that 40-year-old TERF and doesn't know any better, that's someone, there's still potential there. And I think
there's hope there.
And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, right.
Yeah, who does?
Whose idea of a good time is just sitting down
Yeah.
at like a turf and radfem tea party?
Pay me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
won't.
I'm just. It sounds like the worst experience.
Oh,
Sansa.
baby.
He's
He's
here.
he's a geriatric old man. Am I wrong?
Who?
The
A
cat.
little.
Oh, we're
kitty.
talking about the cat. I thought no, no, you're not wrong. He just had two teeth pulled, so he doesn't have any. Um, he doesn't have any canines in his lower jaw anymore.
Yeah, he's a geriatric old man whom I love.
He's amazing, and I love him.
Uh, but I think it's exposing ourselves to a little bit of discomfort, speaking up when we can, and then I think also it's doing stuff like this.
Yeah,
It's having these conversations. It's being open. It's talking. We're
Mhm.
definitely gonna have to do that media lit collab because I've said it and it sounds like fun.
I
Um,
definitely
Yeah.
want to do that.
so I think it's gonna be. Oh no, this is not the end. We still have stuff to do. Uh, but I think it's exposing ourselves about a little bit of that discomfort, and then also I think it's building spaces like what we had. So, like, if you
Yeah.
visit our Discord acts a lot like those forums of old.
Hmm.
Because
It's
guess
a nice
who runs
place.
it?
The old people. No, okay.
Yeah, it feels a lot like those forums of old. Uh, no, don't worry, we're wrapping up, and we've had a great time speaking with you. And yeah, we definitely want to pick your brain on like the truly old ways because you are describing times when we were literal children or before we were born.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yuri Cannon always has cool things to talk about.
yeah. I followed you on Twitter.
There are lots of ways to join our Discord. I will probably drop a link in just a little bit before we head out. But I think it's stomaching a little bit of discomfort, and then also, it's staying abreast. Sam's most recent article, if you have access to it, is I've read a portion of it through my institution, and it's amazing. And I feel smarter every time I'm in the same like general circle as Sam. Like anytime I'm in like just like the general vicinity, it's like I am more intelligent. Um Twitter is unfortunately a hellhole that we cannot yet escape. There is one more thing that we would like to do while we have Sam on is we hit a milestone.
Yes,
We had
Oh,
500 subscribers on YouTube
and
yes.
5,000 plays. Was it?
and 25,000 plays. So
I'm really. I sorry for questioning. I'm just so bad with numbers. I just. I need
Girl is just like, and we hit a number.
a number that
Congratulations.
like I'm looking at it, but I can't read it.
So thank you all so much. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I'm still flabbergasted in all of the best ways, but I greatly appreciate you all for being here, and I'm so excited for just continual episodes. We're definitely gonna have Sam back on because Sam is a beacon of light in this world. Corolla, what are we talking about next month? And I'm sure will be very, very interesting to all of our listeners.
You tell me because I don't have.
You're like, notes! Scrambling.
I have been, but I have been away from my laptop. I don't have anything, so I'm just. I am.
You tell me. We are discussing piracy.
Yes, I knew that. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I knew that with the whole Funimation.
No, Corolla, you're supposed to say I was testing you.
Yeah,
we're discussing.
You're like, I knew that.
Yeah, we're discussing piracy and monopolies.
Yes.
That is our 18 plus Discord that I just dropped in chat. But I am so excited to talk about this. This is something that, again, we talked about in the old show, and our opinions are likely vastly different because monopolies are terrible.
And the climate has changed.
Yes. So we are going to talk about piracy, how piracy was necessary in old fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And what to
Might
do.
and might be becoming necessary in the new times, maybe.
Yeah, and now might be continually necessary. There's things that you can't find on streaming anywhere. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about that. We'll also be announcing a contest likely right after
Oh.
I take this makeup off to celebrate 500.
Yes.
We'll be announcing a giveaway where I'm just, I'm so thrilled. Thank you all for being here, and thank you all for listening to this show. If someone went back in time and said, you're going to co-host a BL podcast with one of your best friends and have on some of the smartest people in the world talking to you about fictional gay men, I would have screamed because time travel is scary. And I would have been like, who the fuck are you?
A demon.
Everyone who's like, if I could go back in time and talk to my kid self, child Amanda would be like, ah!
He's trying to tempt me with the wiles of what I think I could have.
It's the devil. It's the Yaoi.
It's the gay devil. It's the Yaoi devil.
I appeared to like 9-year-old Amanda, who is still in that evangelical church. Yeah, that's gay Satan.
I'm trying to imagine like small little blonde me being visited by this me. I don't think she would get it.
Yeah.
You would see yourself and be like, are you a fairy?
She'd be
with your like gorgeous bright hair.
She'd be like, you can't possibly. First of all, I'm wearing makeup, so I'd be like, the young me would be like, you're a fake.
You're a poser and I hate you. Yeah, I'm wearing makeup. I hated wearing makeup because I did all those hair shows and pageants, and my mom wore a lot of makeup. So one, I'd be very, very confused. I'd be like, oh, you're a whore just like Mother is. So, I mean, little me would have some choice words to say.
Oh my God.
They would be very disappointed that I'm not president of the United States.
Yeah, and one of those words, or rather sentences, would also probably be, what is yaoi? What is a yaoi? Explain.
Yeah, what is a yaoi? And then
there were no people.
Littlest me would be happiest about knowing that I'm making a BL manga with some of my best friends. And that I work in the art field.
Yeah, I think young me would be disappointed that I'm not president, would be very, very concerned that I'm wearing makeup, and would just be very generally confused that I still exist.
I think it's peak me that I didn't even consider telling young me that I'm a writer now.
You're like, hey, it's me. Bye.
You're so bad at self-promo that you can't even tell your young self you write books.
You do that peace sign and fade out like pew, pew, pew.
Like I'm trying to imagine like going back in time and telling younger me, it's like, hey, you're seriously thinking about cross-dressing as someone's twink deer boyfriend.
Is that
you're like, how do I know you're me? Tell me my thoughts. You say it, and you're like,
I think, but I'm so thankful to Sam. Thank you for your time. We will work.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Give gifts to all.
Thank you for having me. I always have like such a great time because like I just don't have anyone to like hang out with necessarily like more recently to just like go over, you know, old fandom stuff, you know, you like grew up with. Everything's like discourse these days.
Yeah.
So it's like it feels good to just be like, remember when things were simple and gay.
And if you ever want us, I think that's
simple
something
and clean.
Curl and I both said that we want to do like more voice chats and hangouts in Discord. So yeah, if you ever want to hop on, we could arrange that. Also, we have convention season that will be coming up. If you guys have panel ideas that you'd like for us to go over, please feel free to leave them in Discord or in emails somewhere, because we have obligations to fulfill, and I am nothing if not a consummate professional.
Not one of us is.
So one of us has to be.
I heard one season, and when
you're like, someone has to drive the car.
I don't even have a
you
license.
Literally can't drive. It's me.
I can't drive.
You literally can't drive. It's me.
Wait, none of us can drive.
I can drive.
Oh, okay.
Sam and I can't drive.
Gay incompetence for the win. High five.
Yeah.
Couple of passenger princesses.
Gay people can't drive, Amanda.
Oh, are you confirming what the gay lesbian alliance said when I was in high school, that I'm not an actual gay?
We all know
Because I can drive.
No, it's like you don't have all three. It's always like you don't have all three, and I was like, I got those two, and then it got to driving. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, so
I'm like, they saw me.
So mine is always, I don't have a dad. Everyone, that's always.
I haven't.
It's like
I haven't been on a bicycle in like years, so I'm scared of riding a bicycle.
The last time I got on a bicycle, I proved that the saying that once you learn to ride a bicycle, you never forget, that is a lie. I got on that bicycle and I fell over.
I haven't been on a bicycle in approximately 1,000 years, because I fell and I broke my wrist on a bicycle, and I broke my dominant hand.
I just really hate it because, like, I hate biking uphill, but I also hate going downhill. And I live in Norway; it's not flat, so I really hate bicycles.
You're either racing towards traffic or you're like struggling to get up a hill.
I was going to ask, like, so what part of the experience is enjoyable to you, Corolla? And then it's like none of them.
None. There's
The experiences.
Well, also here too, it's like the United States is like actively hostile to bikes, and I live in a bike-friendly city, and I'm like, no thanks.
Tackles in Texas, where you need a car to get anywhere. But I've had such a lovely time having this conversation with you guys. I'm even more excited to talk about piracy next month. I'm just excited. We have a lot of cool things coming up this quarter. Pearl and I get to have another quarterly meeting soon.
Yeah. We can have that now that I am back.
The brief moment of sheer panic, though.
It's just I have 3 meetings next week, and I just don't want to hear that word right now.
We're not doing it next week.
No, it's just the word meeting is very triggering for me right now.
Girl, pre-traumatized.
Like, I have 3 meetings, and I'm like, that's not a lot, really.
In my life, it is a lot. You don't understand.
I know.
I have 2 spoons.
Yeah,
and
Corolla has 2 spoons, and bless her, I'm usually having to carry most of them.
Thank you.
But thank you guys so much for being here. We will type up our giveaway details shortly, as soon as I get this makeup off of my skin, because I much enjoy wearing makeup for a very limited and finite period of time.
Thanks for showing up, everybody.
Thank you for being here, everyone. And Sam, thank you so much for continuing to be the pillar of light in this community. We appreciate you, and we hope that you continue to prosper in this given field.
Thank you so much. It genuinely does mean a lot.
You mean a lot. Like,
you mean a lot to us.
Aww.
Thank you. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.